Welcome back to another episode of Pushing Back Chaos with me, Paul Melon McFadden. I hope you guys are all well. I hope you are pushing through. Can't believe we're friggin' almost halfway through the year already, Mike. How you doing, mate?
Good morning, Melon. Yeah, man, time's going by. Well, we're recording this beginning of June, but we're finishing up this for our May series.
Indeed,
But
we
yeah,
are.
it's flying fast, man. But I'm glad it's summer. It's summertime, pretty much here in the U.S. And we just had Memorial Day last weekend, and it was beautiful weather. And man, it's just really nice start to a new promising year. That's for sure.
I know that you every year have special stuff that you get up to for Memorial Day. And I know this year was no different, Mike. Maybe you can share with us how you spent the day and what special stuff you got up to.
Oh, yeah, of course, man. It's, obviously a huge day for any military veteran that, it, just like in Australia, you have, was it Anzac Day? It's
We do,
called,
yeah.
right? And everything where we take a day. I think it should be more, but we take a day to remember our fallen and reflect and share their stories and everything. So every year that I'm available, I always go to Arlington National Cemetery in Washington, D.C. And the last couple of years, it's been through Operation Once a Lifetime, helping out with our buddy Pat Sowers, and he with his organization flies veterans in, and they get to visit family, friends, teammates that are buried there. And I just love volunteering to go up there and just spend time with them, make sure some of the veterans get around and the older ones and everything, and then just have time to share stories and hear about their service member and everything and what they went through and what why they're there visiting. And it's just always so moving to remember, man. But the weather was beautiful and just a perfect day to reflect and spend time at the cemetery. And there was so many people there visiting and taking photos and it's getting pretty wild, man, because I say my generation, like the GWAT, the war's over for a couple years now, and they're building a new global war on terror memorial up there next to the Lincoln Memorial. So it should be finished up in a year or two for a place for us to go specifically. There's the Vietnam Wall up there and World War II and
Wow.
Korea and stuff, but they're building our own now, and it was kind of like, wow, dude, this is going to be for my generation, and it kind of hit home while I was there. But a great visit, man. Took some nice pictures, sent them to some teammates' parents, just saying, hey, thinking of you today and love you, and just always, very humbling and meaningful to be on those places. And I had the distinct pleasure when Melon visited a couple years ago for us to go up there for the day and just walk
Mm.
around. And I introduced him to some of my friends that are buried there, and just being able to share that moment with you was really cool and special. And I shared that story with a few people up there. I said, "Oh yeah, my mate from Australia came up, and he was able to be here, and we shared that." And they really like that. It's not
Mm.
something you hear too often. So
Super moving day. I remember that as clear as it was yesterday. We went and visited Mike there on the East Coast, and he hosted us out to DC, and we rode scooters around, electric scooters. I had my vision impaired daughter Annie on the front of mine, and we're riding around. It was a very cool and very memorable day. We covered like a huge amount of ground, right around the Lincoln Memorial and all those famous sites you've seen all the movies like Forrest Gump. And then later in the day, Mike was generous enough to take us to Arlington, and a very moving place for anyone to ever visit. But, you know, 1,000 times more moving to be taken by someone who's your close friend to see some of his best friends and where they lie in those beautiful white rows of crosses. Very moving, very hard to describe, very humbling.
yeah, I always say if there's one way I can describe it, it's the perfect place for that kind of company.
Yeah.
Like it couldn't be designed better. It couldn't be laid out better. It's exactly what they deserve, and it's just so humbling to be there. But it was a great weekend, and we had a few other things to celebrate, man. It all came together, just really in one weekend. So we had that portion, but then also we celebrated my girlfriend's birthday up
Um,
there and had a great time. We're at the piano bar, sang some karaoke. Well, it wasn't karaoke, but they paid for me to go up there and sing my butt off, and have some fun. So that was good. And the other part was some promotions. So our one of our old guests, Kenny G, great dude, just Army veteran, combat wounded veteran, said that he couldn't do anything. Turns around, becomes a fireman, an EMT, and a police officer, all just still active, doing all three. He just got promoted to sergeant. And
wow.
yeah, just want to give a shout out to Kenny and just
Wow. Congratulations,
phenom
man.
yeah, phenomenal dude, man. Like you just can't stop him. I'm just always so proud of him and he's inspiring. And then also I got promoted. Uh yeah, they made a major mistake. They made a huge mistake, Melon.
They obviously
And
did not act on the paperwork I've been sending in.
I know. And it came a couple of days early and I was like, I got a phone call and I'm like, oh, really? Okay. Well, nice. So yeah, I'll get to retire at a little bit higher rank. But
Man,
clearly, I said,
congratulations, man. No joke. We have heavy banter between the two of us, but it's an amazing recognition of who you are, and you're not. The people you're competing with in your world are very high performers. So it's a massive acknowledgement from
well,
from the people around you. Well done.
I appreciate it, Melon. I'm very honored to have it. But you know, as we always talk about, I would be nowhere and nothing without great teammates. And I've never done anything by myself. So I lean on a lot of really good people and support personnel and everybody that's all part of the mission. And I can't do anything without them all buying in, and they definitely have. So it's just a reflection of a good team. And, the cards fell, and I don't know what the odds are, but they're pretty high. But somehow I got extremely lucky and they decided to promote me. Not making a joke of a bad thing, but there was like a ship that hit the Brooklyn Bridge, like 2, 3 weeks ago. It was a Mexican Navy ship, and a little dark humor. I'll throw it out there. But at the piano bar, there's a little thing on the wall where you can write stuff, like a call out type thing, and they write stuff up there for like a certain amount of money, and then they play a song. And Kenny got up there. I called him out and I had his name up there, congratulations, promoted to sergeant and all these cool things. And he looks at me, he's like, yeah, you're done. So he goes up there and slips him a little note to the piano player. And they write up there, congratulations, senior chef, instead of chief. And I said, chef. And I looked around and everyone starts clapping. Everyone's like, what are you cooking? And making fun of me. And so I said, yeah, they totally messed up, man. I said, senior chef over here. And, I was trying to be a good dude and I, rammed the ship into the Brooklyn Bridge and they still promoted me. So, yeah, I don't know what's going on here, So that was kind of the
There's no
ongoing joke was that I was the chef and that was
there's
terrible.
no iron team. There's no iron chief apparently.
Apparently not.
Oh man,
But
that is gold.
yeah, it was a great weekend, man. And you know, getting into what we're talking about, it was a great weekend on my mental health and some just
Mm.
great practices that we're going to talk about today. Some of the things that I exercised up there throughout this week, kind of, was a good reset when you get a good reminder of like what you're doing, what your responsibilities are, what you're part of, where you came from, what you should be doing. And some of these things are very relevant. We talk about them all the time, but I definitely feel my mental health is definitely up over the last week after all this stuff. And we're going to get into the topic today again, which is
Oh,
best practices for maintaining good mental health throughout, throughout your day, throughout your week, your life, like whatever you're doing. So, um,
Right. All right. So where we are today is part three of three. We've been working mental health through which is the month of May topic, and obviously this one goes over a little bit, but we're pushing out the third part now. Part one was episode 93, breaking the stigma, real conversations about struggle. We talked about real strength isn't never struggling; it's being honest in the middle of it, and that relationships only exist in the communication. Mike defines stigma as a fear of disgrace associated with circumstances, quality of a person. Talked about reasons for lack of awareness in ourselves and others. We don't know the roots of our issues, and we live in the age of social envy, and there can be a lot of stigma associated with this social media / envy platforms we have. We talked about Stu Weber's four pillars, his identities that we can choose to act from to break stigma, the leader, warrior, mentor, and friend. Mike, he's always one of his favorite lines. He says it all the time: is being open about being broken, and what a power that can access. And I talked about how we often are we're famous for underestimating how much other people want to help us. We then moved on to episode 94, which was the weight we carry, and again we talked about tying things back to episode 92, which was stillness, the power of stillness, finding your presence in the noise, and the using our framework of identity, action, outcome to select one of Stu Weber's identities and then act from that. Identifying the battlefield. Mike talked about the mental and spiritual battles that we fight. He talked about a salute, S being size, A activity, L location, U uniform, T terrain, E equipment. Salute to define the battlefield that you're fighting in. Name your battle. And the battle might be the battle of not being enough. And that struggle isn't weakness, it's a signal. Pause, listen, then choose who you want to become. So that was episode 94, the weight we're carrying this week. We're talking about actions and practices that we can use in a battle against mental health, to fight for our mental health. Mike.
yeah, that's a great recap, Melon. So many things that we can, really get into, and I know we're having like this in one episode broken into three, but this is something we take very seriously, and I think at least once a week I've been having conversations with somebody about trying to maintain their health. Whether it's a phone call, just saying, "Hey man, you got some time, I'm really going through something," or "I'm really stressed out over something," or just some type of thing. At least once a week, I've been routinely having conversations with people, and a lot of it's the same stuff. Like there, there's no like really special case that I've really been hearing about. It's all the same things. And one of the first things is just to kick off is, sleep, getting good sleep.
100%.
Like, dude, my ass just woke up about 30 minutes ago, right? And I'm like, oh man, I slept great, but I really invest in my sleep. The older I get, and I see and feel how important it is, especially, like I take a lot of abuse with work, and a lot of stress. So it's like, man, I need to counter it with really good sleep. And, some of the things that I've experienced or other people have been talking about is just if you don't sleep good, like if you're not sleeping well or you're not prioritizing sleep, and there's so many things that could lead to like your stress and anxiety, like your body not being able to decompress while it's
Mm,
resting. My girlfriend's she's a physical therapist, and we were talking about it last night at dinner, and she's like, "Yeah, one of the biggest things I see is when people come in and they don't sleep right, their body doesn't heal right, and that leads to chronic pain, and like
yeah.
they're always hurting. It's all
Yeah.
my muscles hurt, my back hurts, my neck hurts, this hurts, whatever." And she's like, "Well, how are you sleeping?" And they're like, "Well, I don't really sleep, or I only sleep like 3 4 hours a night." So that's a huge one, is just having chronic pain. And then ultimately too, if you're not sleeping, you know, you got to have time to repair your body. You can't be going 12, 14, 16 hour days and not giving your body proper rest and allowing it to repair itself and settle down and, everything, and then expect yourself to get better, and of course this is just one little piece, but uh, sleep is one of the most important things you can give yourself for your mental health. Um, and if you're not sleeping well, then there's a whole list of questions after that of why aren't you sleeping well? What are the factors? Are you prioritizing your sleep? Um, are you staying up all night playing video games or watching TV, which is distracting you? Like that's a very easy one. Are you consuming certain things before bedtime, like when you're supposed to? So are you sitting there drinking beer? Are you trying to drink yourself to sleep? Are
Yeah.
you eating bad sugary foods or drinking caffeine or anything like that that are counterproductive to falling asleep? There's a lot of questions there. And if any of the answers are yes, I'm doing those things, then you're really not prioritizing your sleep, you
This
know?
is all so close to the center of the bull's heart. This is stuff I've been following like a lot recently. I've been using my watch, tracking my sleep, and trying to manage it for a few months, Mike. I've been really trying to trend it up in duration and quality. And I listen to a lot of people might be familiar with Dr. Andrew Huberman, a Stanford professor of neurobiology and ophthalmology, and he does a lot of interview. He does a lot of science-based podcasting, and he talks about significant impact on even just one night with maybe 4 hours sleep in the next day. The drop in protective T killer cells in your immune system that go and sweep your body for cancer cells. They drop down 40% the one night of poor sleep. It's just horrifying impact. And our modern life sets us up with screens and artificial light, and there's a whole evening routine that we should be following. There can be timing of if you're going to eat starches like carbohydrates, eat them in the evening to help with that not nice feeling of fatigue. There's some supplementation you can do. Chamomile tea has a component. You can take the supplement, but you also just buy the tea and drink that, and it can help set you off. And minimizing screen time, not having stimulus such as conversations that are going to get you amped up, or maybe news, or action movies, perhaps stuff that's going to get your brain going. You want to avoid them late at night, and you want to really try and I'm trying myself. I'm trying to put all this into practice. Have a bit of a quarantine period and a structured rundown in the evening to try and have that easing into sleep and then having more quality sleep.
Yeah.
100%. 100%
Melon,
been
what
working on this stuff myself.
that's great. Go ahead and describe like what you're trying to do. Like what does your nightly routine look like?
So there's um, consumption of foods in the evening that can, if I'm having carbohydrates, I'll have more if I've done weight training or if I've done some hard cardio that day. But I try and time them in the evenings now, which I previously wasn't. I was trying to have them earlier in the day. The protein and salads and vegetables and stuff are consumed sort of afternoon, evening, and then evening adding carbohydrates. There's a reduction in bright lighting. So like at the moment, I've got my wife has like a dim bulb that I've got just behind the screen here. I've got that beside the bed. And there's a staged wind down with the timing of the last meal to be about 2 hours before sleep. Then having tea. We're drinking like an evening chamomile tea mix. And I've got a supplement that has a list of 4 supplements in it. There's a type of magnesium, there's a threonine, there's a few things. You don't have to take supplements, you can just take teas and stuff, but I've listened to a bit of Huberman and I've gone for the specifics. I'll put the details in the show notes. And then I read. Reading in the evening is my wind down and switch off mode. I just get into my escapism. I read novels in the evening. And like a big one actually before that is having like stuff for the day getting resolved. When I talked to Cherry earlier, sort of like 8 p.m. to have stuff, not have conversations that could be triggering or get your brain into an alert mode later approaching evening. So it's just like get all that sort of serious stuff done along with the evening meal around 8 p.m., and then it's a deliberate wind down. Like,
I love it. Sounds very similar to mine.
what are you doing?
Well, usually we eat dinner, then we'll go into the living room. We've been watching a show, so we'll watch a little bit early. We'll watch like one episode, and then after that, it's go up and nightly routine is no more phone. Kind of take a shower, brush your teeth, get everything ready.
Mm,
And then I'll go down and I always make us some tea. And we've been having either chamomile or sleepy time tea. Has a little bit of like just a hint of like melatonin in it. But I've always drank tea for the longest time, and I got my girlfriend doing it now. She had trouble sleeping, and I said, hey, you need to adjust some things and to figure out what works for you, but we're going to try these certain things. So now she's like, she's her sleep score is like in the 90s, like high 80s,
yeah,
90s
great.
every time on her watch. Like that's how she judged. She used to be in the 50s, and
Yeah,
doing these practices, it's shown. And she's like, yeah, this stuff really works. So we'll make some tea. We'll sit up. No, like I said, no more phone, and usually put on something kind of like something on TV just a little bit for maybe like 15, 20 minutes to watch. And then we turn the TV off and it's just dark. It's just dark in the room. And we have for what we did is we invested in a thing called a chili pad.
yeah,
Well, they're a little expensive. They're like 1,800 bucks, man. But
yeah.
again, I invest in my sleep and it's
We
amazing.
had one of them. We had one of them in Saudi.
Yeah, it's amazing. And for people that don't know
Yeah.
what that is, basically it's a machine for each side that goes under your bed, and you can control it by an app, and you can control the temperature of your side of the bed. It pumps in a thin layer of water, and I'm
Mm.
a very hot sleeper. I'm like freaking like a lava, like a volcano or something like that. And so I need it to be nice and cool in my bed. And so I sleep at 72 to 74.
So funny.
And so you can be under the covers, your room can be hot, but your bed stays nice and cool throughout the night. So we turned that on, and uh, I always try to just do some meditation. So as I'm laying there, laying in my bed, it's dark. I close my eyes, lay flat on my back, put my fingers out, and I just do some breathing. And so in through my nose, out through my mouth, and I just sit there and think about. I know it's kind of silly, but it works. I think about like images of nature, and if I was one of those things, like if I was a bird and I'm like flying through a valley, just really beautiful scenes. Think of the next morning like that, as if like, oh man, when I wake up tomorrow, I'm going to be flying through this mountain. And I'm not just looking at like the bigger picture. I'm really trying to focus on like the rocks next to the river that I'm flying over and look at specific stuff. And honestly, dude, before I know it, I'm already out. Like,
That's so good.
yeah, it's focusing on one thing. I'm not thinking about the day. I'm not thinking about conversations that I had. I'm not thinking about bad things that happened. I'm really just
Mm.
like putting my mind in neutral and just kind of gliding. And like I said, next thing I know, man, my body's relaxed and I'm waking up the next morning and the alarm's going off and I just feel
That's
refreshed
great.
and
That's
good to go.
pretty. It's pretty similar to what we're both doing. That's pretty funny. Like just just for everyone listening, we've not talked about this. This is pretty funny how aligned we've ended up. Both of us are nuclear rods. My Ula, which is like a different version of the chili pad. When I was in Saudi, I'd have that on 18 Celsius, which is 64.
Wow.
Yeah, super cold. One of the things that the research is that you have a body temperature drop associated with falling asleep. And so try and have the room cool. If you don't have to get one of these cooling bed coverings because they're pretty expensive. Some of the research shows if you have a hot shower before bed, your body actually cools down after that. It's like your body reacts to the heat of the hot water. It doesn't have to be long. Get out, show yourself down, get your night clothes on, and your body will have a dip, and you can time it so that that occurs at the same time, and trying to keep the room cool. While you're in the bed. Wow, sleep. That's a freaking great place to start, Mike.
Yeah, because you ain't sleeping, man. You're not even engaged. All you're thinking about, man, I'm really tired, and that's really all you can think about. And your body's trying to do everything it can to rest itself, even when you're going throughout your day. So if you're not prioritizing your sleep, I think that's number one right there is figure
Yeah.
out how to get that done and prioritize it. Don't make excuses, but be like, I need to sleep and I need to make some changes and do them.
Well, this is the thing, right? Without action, intention remains unrealized. And so Stephen R. Covey, who is a great inspiration to me, his first habit is be proactive. Habit one of the 7 habits.
Yep.
And so you got to make a start. I'm not a product of my circumstances. I'm a product of my decisions. Is a quote from him.
That's
So there
right.
you go. Set the structures up. So structures in the evening, and that they can tie over then into structures in the morning. Morning practices that set your identity and get the rhythm of the day going. Is there a set routine you do in the morning, Mike? Is aviation speak. This is the morning is your runway. This is our direction, momentum, and clarity.
Hmm.
And it doesn't have to be perfect, but we want to be in the process, I think, of choosing our identity before the day chooses it for us.
That's right. And one
So
of
have you got a specific routine you've been running in the mornings?
yeah, uh, one of my pastors, he said it really well. He said, protect your mornings.
Mm,
And I really think about that. And what that means is when you start off, as soon as you open your eyes, most people, not all, but most people, I imagine, looks like wake up, roll over, grab your cell phone, check your messages, check all your notifications, and start doing. I call it doom scrolling. And you just start getting sucked into social media immediately. That's the first thing that gets put into your head. You're looking at the daily news, you're looking at your friends' updates, you're looking at all the drama, you're looking at all the nasty things. I mean, you're just instantly waking up and shocking your system with all this information. And where do you start? Maybe you're turning the TV on and Fox or CNN's on, and it's instantly triggering for some people. Oh my God, look what this person did today, and look how bad the world is, and blah blah blah, and all this
mm,
stuff. And it can really send you right into like a negative state, right? Your mind's waking up with that. So, how do you combat this? Well, number one, do not go straight to your phone. Okay. And wake up. And Melon and I have been doing like something similar. And I think we both have really good reactions to it. But as soon as you wake up, do not go straight to your phone. Just kind of lay there. Lay on your back. I like to roll over. Man, like a slug getting out of bed. I'm a big oof, but I like to kind of prop myself up a little bit on my back, put my pillow behind my back, and I just kind of lay there, man, and let my body just naturally wake up. Uh, I sit there, lay flat, hands at my side, and it's not long. It's 5 to 10 minutes max.
yep.
It's not like I'm laying there for an hour. And I just really sit there and think, man, every morning for me, I start out with some mindfulness or like prayer for
Mm,
myself. My daily prayer is thanks for letting me Lord, thanks for letting me wake up today because some people didn't. So
mm,
I always start out with gratitude, and I always just reflect on what I'm doing for the day, or what my purpose is for the day, and where I don't know what's going to happen, but I reaffirm myself in the moment. And part of my prayer is like, God, I want you to use me today for whatever conversation or interaction or situation that I step into. Like, allow me to be confident, allow me to be purposeful, allow me to be a positive. Let me act and say the right things, do the right things, and I just reflect on it and think about the possible places I might
mm,
be stepping into today. And that takes 5 minutes. And I just feel encouraged. I feel like I have reinforcements or something like that. I feel more confident. I have a better identity of like, man, I really have purpose today and I know what I'm doing. And I'm not just on the
mm,
receiving end of social media, of the news, of all these messages and information that's pouring into me constantly from 10 different directions. It's I'm in control. I have I have the ability to define that moment. And if I don't start in the morning, first thing, like everything else is going to start it for me instead. And then I
yeah.
just kind of have to fight my way back to that center ground of like, what was I doing again? Where am I going? What am I supposed to focus on? Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Like I just get distracted, man. Like I'm human just like everybody else. And it's really paid dividends of my mental health going forward when I step into the living room or and have a conversation with my girlfriend or stepping into the workspace and being like, yeah, I'm confident, I'm calm, I already know what I'm doing, I've already visited this space, like I'm good to go. And other people are still waking up or still trying to figure out what was I doing again today and going through their list. Um,
Yeah,
and you start that with 5 to 10 minutes in the morning, the first thing, man. And it's not going to be one day. You don't do that one day and be like, oh, yeah, I see it. It takes
yeah,
like 2 to 3 weeks to really
yeah,
get
yeah.
into
You
it.
get momentum, right? You get momentum. I
Absolutely.
reckon I mean, it's, you know, Mike and I have been doing a similar thing here, that moment of stillness in the morning, moment of presence in yourself and experiencing gratitude as a way to start the day is a really very powerful thing. Eckhart Tolle is another one of the guys that I've read a lot and really impacted me. And he is of the opinion that mental suffering mainly comes when we're identifying with past or future, when we're in a, regret or churn on past, especially traumatic past, or fearing a future outcome with anxiety. And that moment in the morning can get you back into the present, back into the place where you have your power, and about building your awareness. So there's a direct benefit for us here. We're talking about actions and practice to battle for mental health as part of our mental health month, 3-part series. So you have this moment in the morning where you can just take your 5 to 10 minutes. It's not a lot of time. Outcomes are that you can reduce anxiety and overthinking. You can interrupt these negative thought loops that we all have from time to times. You can anchor your clarity and calm. And after you've had that moment of stillness, you can have, a bit of an identity check-in. Like, who do I need to be today with our identity action outcome model? Are there areas in my life today where I need to be a leader? Where do I need to be a mentor? Where do I need to be a warrior? Where do I need to be a friend? And then, boom, you're off and into the day. You've made a solid start. I would add that on top of this meditative practice, and sometimes at the same time, it can be good to have physical movement in the morning. Like, been doing a bit of a run around a lake. The days are different when I've exercised first thing in the morning, and it can be a lot of that gratitude and presence can happen in that physical movement as well. I know
Yeah.
all of us when we're in the military always pretty much start the day with PT. So
That's right.
stillness, identity check-in, gratitude, and physical movement as a good way to start the day.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Exercise, right? I think that's the next big one that we're going to get into. And there's so many different parts of exercise that really play on your mental health, whether it's your the view of yourself, self-confidence and how you
Mm,
look, you look good, you feel good type thing. But also just like Melon was saying, like when you get your blood flowing in the morning and your endorphins are going, testosterone's rolling through, like that reinforces a lot of like really good behavior. If you wake up and you don't work out, you didn't sleep well, you didn't eat good, like you're waking up and you're just like again on the receiving end of literally every negative thing, and then you're like your body hurts because you're just feeding it sugar and it's not
mm.
getting the proper exercise. You're not going to wake up looking good and feeling good, especially when you look in the mirror and you're like, ugh, I could lose 10 pounds. Ugh, I could lose 20 pounds. It's like, well, it's not going to lose itself,
Yeah,
So
that's right.
just
I mean,
starting. Go
this
ahead.
ties in again with Stephen Covey, right? Like, begin with the end in mind. Like, where do we want to get to? Or like, I want to have health span and lifespan pushing out. I want to be active with my kids. I want to be active deep into my as far as I can go. I want to be running around and throwing a ball and doing all those sort of active stuff.
Hmm.
And so if you begin with the end in mind, you know that outcome, like some of the people like Dr. Peter Attia, who talks about activity in your last decade. And if you want to get there, you can set yourself goals now that you're working towards. So Stephen Covey's third habit is put first things first. So this is an important thing physically, but then it doesn't just stay in the physical realm. It always ties over into the other physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. And if you're not taking care of one of those areas, you're always gonna one wheel on the car's not running right. That you're gonna know it about it. car's not going to ride right.
Yeah. And I hear excuses all the time. It's just I don't have enough time in the mornings. I gotta get my kids whatever and I gotta get them up and do stuff, so I never have time to work out. If you wake up 10 minutes earlier, I know it's not that much, all right, sacrifice. Realize what you're investing in, right? It's
Mm.
not like, oh, that's a nice thing to do for somebody else. No, you're doing it for yourself. And if you wake up 10 minutes earlier and you wake up and you let your body wake up and you kind of get your mind right and you get down and you do 50 push-ups, you do 50 sit-ups, you do 50 air squats, that's a win. Even if it's a
Yeah,
little bit,
100%.
like you're investing in yourself for the day. You're not giving it to somebody else. It's not a nice thing to do. It's like you're really investing in yourself, in your day, in your mental health, in your capability, in your
Mm.
preparation for hard things that are coming. And some people, again, military, we start out with PT every morning. You're out there, you're getting your butt kicked or whatever. But on the back end of it, the result is you feel confident that, you know what, the hardest part of my day was this morning and I already got over that hump. And the rest of the day is really not that bad. I have a few meetings, I got to do a couple things, but like, we really sent it this morning and got after it. And that's a
Yeah.
great feeling, And one thing even it is physical even though it's not working out. It was how he woke up. My one of my good friends, Charlie Keating, who was killed in Iraq in 2016. He lived on a boat in San Diego, and every morning he would wake up, climb to the top of the boat, and he would jump off the top right into the water. And the water temp's like in the 50s, like year round. It's like 52 to 60 degrees roughly. And he would just go, didn't even think about it, would climb to the top of the boat and just dive right off right into the water to like defeat the day or conquering the day. And he's like, yeah, the rest of the day isn't going to be that bad, man. I don't have to jump into ice cold water and do that as soon as I wake up. So I've already won. And
I
he was
love it.
just always happy. He was always smiling, like always positive about stuff. And he was just like, yeah, but it's not that bad. Like no matter what was going on, he's like, yeah, but it's not that bad. And it was just these little things that he incorporated, like first thing of the
Yeah, I
day.
love it.
And just a reflection of his character and who he was and his personality. And he was always joyful. And it was just the little things that made him like that. So, physical activity, starting your day off with something like that is so key. And if you're not doing that, really ask yourself why you're not and get to the root of the problem. If it's
And
laziness, it's correctable. If you don't have time, spend time. You're investing in something
yeah,
that is great for you and your life and everybody in it. It's not a competition with
and
anybody, it's just for you.
and personally, Mike, like I'm not I'm not. It's not like a sink or swim thing for me whether people do it first thing in the morning. Like there's a lot of days when I get it done either during the day or after work.
Hmm.
And all these years of rugby training is pretty much always evenings. It's just the way that it works. I'm pretty sure with most sports around the world, it's like a 6 p.m. or a 7 p.m. training session for a couple of hours, and that's totally fine. Like if you got it in your day, you got it in your week, great. But if it's not, I think that's what Mike is talking about. If it's not in your week, then think about why is it not in your week. Sometimes we can be like, I've got so many demands of family and work and all these other things, and yet you can be putting it in there for those other people in your life. You can be putting it in there to be a better, to deal with the adrenaline, the cortisol, and the demons. The exercise helps us all shift your physiology, shift your psychology. We've always said so you can
Hmm.
drive that physical change that shifts your mentality, and you can. I think you're going to be a better person for longer. You're going to push out this health span for the people around you. And so there's lots of reasons that are bigger than yourself if you need to find those ones too, to be able to drive this investment, as Mike's calling it. I really agree with that word, in time to exercise. Exercise for sure.
Yeah, and I really like the point you're bringing up is like having the vision of what you're doing it for. You know, Melon and I were military guys, and yeah, you wake up and you got to be ready for combat conditions and doing all this stuff. So, yes, we're talking about that, but that may not apply to you, and that's perfectly fine. And we understand that. We talk to our families and friends that aren't military at all about these things and the importance of it. And you got to have a vision again, this could be part of your morning wake up of having this vision of yourself doing something for that day, or maybe in a year, whatever your goal is. But, we're not talking about, David Goggins and running out like you have to be out running 100-mile marathons in your bare feet and doing stuff like we're talking about being functional. We're talking about having, you know, normal capabilities of stuff that you want to do. Like Melon said, like, his goal is to go out and play rugby with his son,
Mm.
in an adult league. Like that's his goal. Like that's nothing too crazy, but he's training himself. He's like, I'm not looking out there to like, go to the what is it, the sevens? Is that what it's
World
called?
Cup. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
like going to the cup, right? And trying to win a championship. He's like, I just want to play a game with my son and be able to be functional and play with him to keep up with him, And I was like, yeah, dude, that totally makes sense. You're
I mean,
not
we're talking about when my son turns 18, when he's able to play open grade adult rugby. I'll be 51, and so I'm like, I got to work. I got some work in front of me to be able to play with him, and that's been a goal of mine already for more than 10 years. He didn't know about it for a long time,
Yeah, think about that. A 10-year commitment that I want to be physically capable of playing rugby with my son. Like
and
that's an
just between
awesome goal.
us, just between us on Thursday night, I went to rugby training for the first time for a while with my club here in Melbourne and had a run. I'm like, right, step one's
Step
done.
step one. Yeah, there's a step one to everything. How was it?
It was good. It was good, no joke. The knees the next day were like really sprints, shuttle sprints like that. You haven't done that for a while. You feel like I've been doing some distance work and some weights and stuff. It's just not the same. It's like, all right, I've got to build up to this. But we're talking about these three of Covey's first habits of be proactive, begin with the end in mind, and put first things first. Like Mike and I are trying to show you that we're putting these things into practice ourselves, and it doesn't. It's not 100% of the time, but it's like 80% of the time. I mean, 80% I reckon is good enough. So we've covered sleep. So and the evening routine. We've covered mornings with stillness, identity checking, gratitude, and physical movement. Sometimes exercise, which is a massive plethora of benefits of blood flow and testosterone production for men and all sorts of stuff. And Mike and I do both cardio and resistance training. They're both very important. A lot of research on both topics. What else are we talking about here, Mike, in our actions and practices to battle for positive mental health?
Well, I think the other part of it too is, if you're dealing with anything that requires like counseling, or you're going through just daily stressors or troubles, relationship stuff,
Mm,
the mental side of things, mental, emotional, and you're trying to deal with those, that can definitely mess with your mental health. Again, man, Mel and I have both had many examples on this podcast about struggles in life and going. And you really just have to identify how to fix certain problems. And I think a big general misconception is that you can fix everything with just everyday practices. Like I
mm,
always tell guys, like, hey, man, you can't fix a broken heart with a barbell. Like you can't use physical things to fix certain problems, but really having some time to reflect on yourself, maybe journaling, writing down your thoughts, your feelings, and getting things in
mm,
order, getting the cluster out of your mind. If you're one of the people where your brain is just constantly flowing with information and it doesn't shut down, and it's just constantly, firing off sentences, words, reliving phrases, trauma, you name it, is sometimes you really have to get that under control. And there's different
mm,
practices that you can get, obviously, from therapists. But one of the things is like journaling. Get like any words or phrases that pop in your head is like get a piece of paper and write them down. Get them out of your head. Organize them on paper so you can physically see them, and you got to get control of them. But addressing certain things. Uh, my biggest challenge, like no, not even kidding, is battling with depression for like almost 3 years. I would lay in bed every night, and I had a previous relationship, and dude, I would just lay in bed all night, and my mind would not stop going. Like the walls were not talking, they were screaming at me, and all I kept hearing is like things that were said, phrases that were said, what if scenarios, going down the rabbit hole of why did this happen? Why did they say this?
Mm,
And it would not stop. And it was like
mm,
this for 3 years, man. And I couldn't get it under control. And it was affecting my sleep. If I didn't sleep good, then I wasn't super hungry. I wasn't working out because I wasn't rested. And it was
mm,
like you said, man, it affects every single part of your day and what you're trying to do. And, it was like, guys were telling me, hey, just go work out, just go run, just go lift some weights, and everything will feel better. No, it absolutely did not help. Like, yeah, I looked good, I feel good, but the inside was still burning. It was like I had like a sickness or like a cancer in me that was still eating away, no matter how much I ran, no matter how much I was lifting. I mean, dude, I started doing 2 a days. I cut down. I was like, sick back to a six pack and like getting ripped again, and none of it inside got fixed. I felt great on the outside looking at myself, but then I'm sitting there going like, why aren't I, asking my questions like, why aren't I good enough? Look at me. Like I'm doing 2 a days and I'm putting in 10 times the work and I'm still not good enough. Or I'm still not feeling better. I'm still not this. And I was trying to fix a problem that had nothing to do with the solution. And I didn't know how to fix it because I never visited there in that way. So having to choose to go to counseling and
mm.
doing practices like journaling, which you and Raf encouraged me to do, and then talking about them too, like externally, like we've talked about them on the podcast, is getting it out of me instead of holding it all in and not talking to people.
Yeah.
Uh, Making it routine in the sense of finding a space to allow those things out and be open. Like Melon said, be open about being broken. Keep in mind, if you do it all the time, there's two things that can be negative. One is you sound like a broken record, and two is you might think that you're being a burden on other people because it's all you talk about. And I get it. You don't want to be that person, and then you also don't want to be the person on the receiving end that's just like, oh man, they're calling me again for the 10th time today, and they're going to talk about the same stuff. I know that's hard, but your real friends, your true friends will be willing to listen and maybe set some time aside to be like, "Hey man, I got 5 minutes. What's up?" Like
Mm,
you guys did for me, like Kenny did for me. He called me twice a day for like 2 months, just to be like, "Hey man, I'm sitting in the squad car. I just wanted to give you a call. How you doing?" And I would say the same stuff over and over and over, and he's like, "I know, man. I know. I feel you. I'm sorry, brother. This." And he's like, "All right, hey, I just want to check and call. I gotta go." That meant the world to me. That meant the
mm,
world to me, man, because like I felt shut off from a lot of other people, and they're like they don't want to hear it, they don't want to know my problems, they don't want to help me. But that little sign from like somebody was so good, but I was able to get it out instead of just like sitting in a hot pan and just sizzling in it was the
mm.
worst thing I could have done. So finding a good way to get it out, whether it was journaling, whether it was talking, whether it was talking on this podcast about ways to get through it or how I was feeling and recognizing that I wasn't the only one. That was a
Yeah.
big one, as knowing that other people were going through things too, was so helpful to my mental health, to my personal look, to know that I wasn't the only one that was, you know, be going through this torture, but there's other people that have been through it and that had ways and healthier ways to get over it. And like I said, I learned a lot about fixing emotional problems with emotional solutions, not trying to use uh, physical ways to heal emotional issues. Like I said, I can't I can't pick up a rifle and go to the range and shoot away my broken heart. I can't deadlift my way out of depression. Like there's certain things
Yeah.
that could help, but it's not the main solution. So,
Yeah. It's like a massive attack, right? Like there's you're taking action in all four areas: the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. At least you were taking the physical. Like you'd be so much worse if you weren't exercising as well, if you weren't eating well. But having the ability to get those thoughts, as you said, the thoughts and feelings out of your mind, so you're not identifying with them, like identifying with the thoughts and identifying with the feelings that come up, is one of the big sources of suffering, according to Eckhart Tolle. And he's like, be the awareness of them, be the awareness where the thought comes up, and you can watch the thought and let it go. And that I've been in this state myself when I've had moments where I see really, really bad news. My whole body's gone into like a shock state. And, I listen to Sam Harris as well, and he talks about negative emotions last about 15 seconds on their own. The thought comes and arises and then falls. But we can keep them alive for hours and days and weeks and months when we keep putting energy into them.
Mm-hmm.
If you just allow the thought to come, observe it, and let it go, you can be in the moment again, but not caught up inside the suffering. And I've done that. I've done that myself in really hard times. I've tried to sit back, let the feeling of suffering and pain come up, and then just let it go and continue with what I'm doing. And when it's fresh, it's coming up pretty often. But it was a different experience than a younger version of me when I was, really pouring a lot of energy into it. Like, why WTF? Why is this happening to me? And like just pouring constant fuel into that feeling and causing it to stick around. And you have that feeling of like, I shouldn't. It's like a worse layer is when you're in like, I shouldn't be suffering.
Yeah.
And that just enhances the suffering, and then you're in it, you know what I mean? Like it's got you by the neck. So
Yeah.
I think there's a whole structure thing there around journaling, getting it out, talking to people, getting it out, recognizing it's not you, allowing the thoughts to come and go, and communicating them with people or into a book where you can put them in their place while you're building sort of some habits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It definitely it definitely opened my eyes that I didn't have to do it alone.
Mm,
And the more I found that I asked for help, that I was open, that I talked about these struggles, especially with mental health and even emotional health, because, my job and my title does not excuse me from dealing with these problems. But the
mm,
other side of it is my job does not teach me how to deal with these problems. It teaches me how to do my job really, really well. Uh, and my pride and my ego would get in the way and be like, I can fix this. I can take care of this because I can do everything else really well. And that was probably the first step of going the wrong direction. The more times I paused, I acknowledged what I was feeling,
mm,
being open and talked about it and shared about it, whether it was in like my friend group, my very trusted friend group, or even like recently over the last year and a half or something. Like I'm one of the most verbal people. Like when I go to my Bible studies. I'm one of the first ones to talk about hard topics and put my stuff out there as an example for others to hear because I know how important it is. Because at times I wish I heard the same thing. So I want to step into that space and offer that.
mm,
But not knowing that you're alone is so comforting. Um, Melon and I have talked about many times of struggle or what we're going through in our life. And every time when we find that we can reach out to somebody else and share the struggle, even if their struggle is the complete opposite, and you help each other and you invest in each other, it really brings you up in a lot of ways.
yeah.
It shows that you're worthy, that you do matter, that you do have something to offer other people. If you're feeling useless, it's like, dude, you're helping another human being like recover and get better and get happy and healthy again. And you see it. And, I was given that I'm sorry, July 5th of 2020. I was in a world of extreme pain and July 5th at midnight, I get a phone call from our friend Adam talking about taking his own life. And I'm like, dude, I'm pretty bad, but I'm not that bad. And then I spent the night like 3, 4 hours on the phone with him, and I finished up, and I was like, dude, things aren't that bad, and he's going through something way worse. And for the next like 2 weeks, we just kept talking about things, and it alleviated some of the mental
Mm,
stressors that I was going through. That I wasn't just on the receiving end, but I was thinking about how can I help Adam today? Like
mm,
if when I talk to him, what am I going to say to reinforce some good things? How, what do I have to offer him? And it was putting me into this state of being proactive instead of reactive. And
yes.
I felt more confident. I felt like I was important to him. I felt like he needed me.
Mm,
I felt like I had something to offer in a positive light, and it wasn't just this constant negative talk. Um,
yeah.
so
You were like manifesting those Stu Weber identities of mentor and friend.
yeah,
And that got you out of, you were choosing those identities, and that got you out of being a victim.
yeah, absolutely, and I was just learning about all that because before that I could never see that because I'd
Yeah.
never done that in that way before or heard about identity like Stu Weber talks about. And it was so moving to me that I was like, what the hell just happened? I remember like a month after that I'm sitting there going, dude, what just happened? Like that's pretty amazing. That's pretty awesome. I was able to help him in my worst day. And I was
Mm.
like, wow, that's pretty special. So there's a lot of things that can come from helping somebody else.
Oh,
Um,
100%.
you know,
And like the first bit I think that I was hearing you saying there is the stillness point, where we talked about this in episode 92, that we don't want to be like Pavlov's dog. We don't want to be the stimulus response animal. With that moment in the middle we talked about, we can build it into our day, you can build it into your routine. And in that moment, you can then choose, how am I going to react to this? I've got this phone call from a guy and he's really suffering. I could be like, mate, I've got too much on my plate. You want to hear about suffering, I'll tell you about suffering. But you
yeah,
didn't do that. In that moment, you paused and you were able to identify who you needed to be. And that the person you needed to be was a mentor and a friend. And that identity gives you power in the face of, you have no power. You're in yourself, you're in your suffering, you're in your, you are being a victim. You're suffering and you're stuck. And getting the attention off yourself in that moment of being able to choose your identity and move forward into action leads to the outcome that you wanted. And your whole state shifted. I can remember this really clearly talking to you at that time. What a
hmm
massive shift had occurred for you from being of service to someone else.
yeah. Which ultimately I think has been like, now that you say it like that, I think is such a big important uh, piece of bedrock for continuing to do this podcast with you,
Yeah.
of seeing the impact that we've had and who it's made me as a man, who it's made you as a man, us as friends,
Mm,
and really what we're doing here and why we share things like this and get into hard moments is because of moments like that. That was probably the first really big impact of moment that I had doing this podcast because we started in like June of 2020, I want to say.
right in COVID.
Right. And that was like a month after that um, that phone call happened, and I saw the impact of like what we were doing and speaking about these tough things and investing in helping others instead of just worrying about myself all the time
Yeah.
and the beautiful impact that had on me. It was like, man, why wouldn't we want to do this? You know?
Yeah. Like
So
there's so much power and grace and beauty in being of service to others. That's where all the parents I know have the joy of the parenting, of the love and the giving for the children and seeing them grow and develop and all of those things. It's clear as clear, you can see it in that relationship. And when you're stuck, often it's a real inwards gaze, you're ruminating about the past, going over conversations. Why didn't I say this? And why did they say that? All that stuff is so internal focused. And to get out of that, I really feel that one of the key things in all of my hard times, when Annie was in hospital, when Cherry had cancer, the focus was on someone else, and that focus on someone else gets you out of your own suffering.
Mm-hmm.
That being able to pause in the stillness, select an identity, and get into action for someone else, I think is really one of the key ways of fighting for mental health. I feel like that's the only way that's reliably worked for me. Like, I don't think you can think your way out of it. When you're in it and you're thinking about yourself, I don't think there's really a way out of it. I
No,
feel like,
it's really staying in that loop constantly, because there's no exit at that point. You're
there's
keeping
no
it
exit.
internally, and it's going head to heart, and it just keeps like cycling through, and there's no exit. There's no off ramp off that highway until you find like a really healthy outlet, whether
Yeah,
it's journaling, whether it's another person, where you're allowing everything to exit and break that cycle. And you just know it. You feel it when it happens, where you're just like, oh man, I feel so much better. Thanks for listening. And yeah, you just sit there and kind of like, what just happened? You
yeah.
know?
You really shifted. Like, you found. I used to say to Mike, you need to find your center. You need to hold your center. So your life is a spinning top, and if it's spinning real slow and you're right near the edge, you didn't even know you're near the edge. There's no problem. There's no velocity you got to worry about. But when you hit those times in life when chaos is there and you're in the middle of the turmoil and trauma, that thing's spinning at 1,000 RPM and you're right out near the edge of the disc, you are going to get thrown off that ride, man.
That
And the
right
only
there.
way, the only way you can hold on is if you're right in the center. And you need to be in the center in the good times, because when that thing spins up, you will not have any warning. And the only way you can withstand it is when you're in that equilibrium point.
Man, exactly what Melon just said. I will never forget him telling me that. Um, it was July, same month. It was July 2020. It was July 6th, I think. And I end up having a conversation with this person that uh, the relationship issues with. I I had a phone call with them, and right before it, I called Melon and was like, I knew I was like teetering, like he's saying, like so many thoughts and chaos and all this stuff. And when I called him, and Raph, I think Raph was there too. Uh, he challenged me and he said, I want you to focus on staying centered the entire time. Think of yourself as a top that you're spinning, and all of this input all the way around this little top is just trying to push you around this table and do whatever, whether it's thoughts, feelings, emotions, certain words that are said, whatever happens. He's like, it doesn't matter. I want you to focus on being that top and stay right in the center and stand strong. And that was such a powerful visual thing for me that when I got onto the phone call, it was maybe, I don't know, 20 minutes or so. And all I kept seeing is myself standing strong, staying centered. And there was definitely some strong blows coming from different directions,
Mm.
hearing things, acknowledging things. And I was like, wow, okay. And I just stayed centered the entire time. And Millen, if you remember, directly after I finished, I called you and I was
Yeah,
smiling of how
yeah,
proud I was of myself,
yeah,
of how I handled it and things that I said, and how centered I was, that I couldn't have done
yeah,
that by myself. And just having Melon and Raph there to be over my shoulder and just giving me guidance and direction. Again, I call them my recce unit because they're a little bit older and more experienced than me, and they're my mentors as well. And I was so proud of myself how I just handled it. And
yeah.
I'll never forget that, man, because that was like my first victory in my mind. That was my first win in months
Mm.
after that.
I
And
mean, this is real life that we're talking about here. This is a real conversation that we really had and that Mike really had, and he was really in a hard place, and he really did the things that we've been talking about here. Really, like everything we've just listed, he was doing at that time. He was trying to put in practice. It was early days. The wheels were spinning a bit. the sand was flying out the back. It wasn't necessarily moving forward at 100%, but journaling and getting the words out, talking, networking, reaching out to friends, asking for help, not being afraid to ask, getting your identity into being service to other people, and then finding your center and holding your center through a really difficult and challenging conversation. And then on the other side of that, there's like a new identity that's been forged. And I know that was a massive turning point for you. Like I know there was like a before and after that, and the strength you have and your ability to withstand and your ability to be of service to other people and the contribution that you can make is tenfold.
Yeah, it was a turning moment for my life and what I'm doing, and I really thought that, man, from this moment on, I really want to be a positive for people, and I really want to help people. Uh, and that was a huge, like I said, it was a huge victory and a huge realization of just like what I'm really doing with my life and who I can be, what I'm capable of. And I want to do this for other people that are in this position in any way. When you're into the worst part of your life, whether it's physically, emotionally, spiritually, whatever, I want to be that pillar, that leader, the warrior, the mentor, the friend in that moment. And I really want to help you get through that. Like that was maybe the whole direction I was put on from that whole event. Uh, and I just love where it's brought me today, man. And same with you. I've seen the same with you, and everybody else in our circle is just service to others and our community and our friends and our teammates and everything that we're doing. We're addressing the hard stuff in order to improve, not to get worse. And I just love being part of this.
Wow. Well, a bit of a honest share there, really, to tie off actions and practices to battle positive mental health. And certainly being of service is an absolute core element there. And I know it feels like you got nothing to give on those hard days. But I promise you, if you're able to put some of these things into practice, and maybe it's a period of journaling and reaching out and trying to get some of these routines, this evening, sleep, the morning, stillness, identity checking, physical movement, gratitude, trying to get some exercise back in your day, reaching out into your network. Maybe you build that way a little bit, and then you find someone you can be of service to, and you will shift things. Like I'm sure there are community groups or kids in your region or people you know, friends that you have that are struggling and that you can reach out to. So closing out this part 3, what's your next practice? So the challenge now is that you don't wait for the breakdown. So you need to build your rhythm up before the storm hits. So what identity can you select tomorrow morning when you wake up? What's one reset that you can put in place this week? And who can you reach out to? And we'd love to hear from you guys if you share that with us on Insta or directly on an email. Share the action and let us know what shifted. And the throwback episodes here are 92, 93, 94, the power of stillness, breaking the stigma and the weight we carry. And thanks for sharing this 3-part episode with us. This series isn't anything to do with fixing yourselves. You guys are already whole and complete as you are. And it's about remembering that and getting back to that. And if this episode or series has helped you, please share it out to a mate and let them know why and what it's done for you, I think, as a way of helping them access it. And so until next time, take care.